Good afternoon, everyone. It's 10:02 on Monday, September the 15th, 2025. Welcome to the regular meeting of the North Kawartha Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee. This meeting will be recorded and be made available for public viewing, so please be aware that comments made will end up part of our final upload on YouTube. I have not received any disclosures of pecuniary interest, but will remind everyone to declare if one does arise. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. Colonial culture and relationship with our land and waters are simply not the same as that of our First People. I remain committed to a life of learning in order to better understand that which may not come naturally to me. We all share a responsibility to be stewards of not just our own land, but of our communities at large. And moving into the meeting, I'm looking for a mover for the agenda adoption. Moved by Ian, seconded by Janet.
We do have an amendment proposed, which was an item of correspondence that was sent to the committee committee as well to add that to the agenda under correspondence.
The amended agenda, same mover, seconder? Sure. Okay. Everyone in favor or all in favor? Sorry, can't assume. That is carried. All right. And adoption of the minutes. Any comments or concerns with the minutes from the August 19th meeting that we held? If not, a motion to receive. Moved by Janet, seconded by Shane. All those in favor? That is carried. I don't have any deputations, so we'll move into business. And we've got a verbal report from Shane, who was able to attend the Anstruther Lake Cottagers Association AGM.
Right, on the August 30th, I think. They had about 35 people there, which was, I thought was good. It seemed like a big crowd for the size of the lake. Presented basically according to what we have done to this point, just the highlights, what was happening, where we've been, where we're at, and next steps. There were just a few questions and comments, mostly around bylaw enforcement, interestingly enough. In fact, all about bylaw enforcement. Doug Wellman spoke up and was very supportive of the work that this committee has done, and asked everybody else to sort of support that and get engaged if they could. Generally well received. That's about it.
And then I guess just so there wouldn't be anyone that came up during the process of that meeting and expressed concerns about over regulation. Maybe.
No, nobody expressed any concerns about over-regulation. During the course of some conversations I had after the meeting, I hung around for a little bit and talked to some people, and very little discussion really about regulation. Again, it was about bylaws. People seem to realize that, noise was covered by the noise bylaw. Open air burning was a bigger issue for the folks down at that end of the, and probably down at the far end of the lake where it's water access and that sort of thing. So they're concerned about brush fires and that sort of thing. But just questions about bylaw enforcement. So really didn't get into a lot of conversations about regulation. It just didn't go there. Interesting to be there for me and see how, the work that we're doing and some of the concerns kind of dovetails with some of the things the Cottagers Association is concerned with in general, or specific things they're concerned with around, litter on the road, drinking and driving on the Anstruther Lake Road, those kinds of things. And it was kind of interesting to hear all of that and what their concerns were, along with what we're doing here. This really was not more important to them than beer cans on the side of the road, to be honest. And what that might signify, and fire risk, fire hazard, fire pumps on the lake, that sort of thing. It was kind of interesting to be there, and it puts it in perspective for me a little bit when, where the concerns lie and where you are on the list sort of thing. But a great group, very respectful, very well received. No issues whatsoever. Chris Johnson is do they call him the chair?
I think president.
President,
Yeah.
really a great guy. Ran the meeting well, seems to have a real good handle on things and how to get concerns handled, all that sort of thing. So good group.
They're a good group, yeah.
Yeah, speaks well for the lake, actually.
Mhm.
That's it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much for volunteering your time.
Mhm.
And
I got hot dog.
Did you stay for the corn rub?
No, I
It's
couldn't
way
wait. I
later.
couldn't wait that long.
No, I know, way later, yeah.
And I think the one interesting thing to consider, because I did punch in on a couple different sites and I could find 4 short-term rentals on like the big Verbo Airbnb sites for Anstruther Lake, which given the size of the lake really isn't a lot of them. So again, totally appreciate the input, but I think it's also worth considering that maybe there isn't a problem rental on that lake right now, and that there could be an impact if there were one. Yeah, I think it's just something that we should be considering, because that lake isn't overpopulated right now in comparison to other ones. You're not trying to steer it one way or another, just.
Well, Anstruther Lake still has a lot of water access to.
Yeah.
And that might reduce the short-term rental count, but certainly nothing was expressed to me that, I have people coming to me and say, I have a problem with property and here's the list of issues because there's short-term rentals on both sides. Nothing like that at all. So it didn't, again, there's only 35 people there, there's no whole lake, but it didn't seem to be, they were aware, but it wasn't high on they had other things that they're dealing with as a cottagers association, besides that. So it was on the list and people were concerned about, again, about bylaws and bylaw enforcement, that sort of thing, but it wasn't, oh, we've got problem properties all around the lake. I didn't receive that messaging at all.
And I think the other important thing to highlight, I mean, even if it's only 35 people, if it's a long weekend and people are going to their lake's annual general meeting, they're usually pretty engaged individuals. So you're probably getting more than 35 people's opinions, because I'm guessing these folks are talking to their neighbors about things if they're taking the time to go out on an AGM.
Yeah, they have a steward system where they have representatives in each sort of area on the lake that provide that sort of feedback through to very well organized group.
They also have a high percentage of people that are members, I think, right?
Yeah.
Do you know, or did they say? No.
I didn't know, and I didn't ask what the membership numbers were, to be honest.
Is it representative as far as cottagers versus permanent residents compared to other lakes, do you know? Or do we have that?
Just
kind
a
of
simple
understanding?
guess would be that it's more cottagers, right? Because there's still a lot of water access, but that's a simple guess.
Yeah, that would be my prediction as well, would be
Yeah.
more cottagers, less full-time residents. Well, you know what? That actually may
Yeah.
change, because most of the short-term rentals that I did see available were at the Landing, which is the condo community. And there you do have a density of full-time residents. It's very accessible with the road going in and everything's well plowed, maintained. But aside from that one little pocket, it would definitely be a cottaging lake, not a residential lake.
Mhm.
If there's no further questions, then motion to receive Shane's report of a discussion. That's moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Ian. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving on to our stages. Of course, my computer gave up on me right now.
It's getting one.
can't even open my internet here right now.
You want mine? I'll just use my paper if you wanna use it.
Monday. Hey. So moving into our stages. So stage one, we have already completed and. I would say if there's anything to discuss here, it would be. The communication plan. Have we, Janet, sorry.
Do you mind if, just for my edification, just to revisit it, I'm not sure we said anything in the Good Neighbor Guide, content about. Like do you know that, there's, for bylaws, it's 2 people sleeping per room? Did you know for bylaws, a bedroom has a door and a window? Some of those, did you knows that at least, people renting would then potentially question or modify their behaviors? Or question the owner and then have the owner modify their behaviors? So it would be a way not to have to enforce, but to have some self-enforcement potential. I just can't recall if we did anything like that in the content.
Okay, sorry, I just did it last night,
Mhm.
so it's fresh.
Mm.
It talks about the nuisance bylaws, as we've called them.
Yeah.
And what they are. It doesn't say anything specifically about capacities or any of that sort of thing. There's sort of some general statements around.
Yeah.
We want to keep the health of the lakes,
Yeah,
you know, and that sort of thing, but that specifically is not there. At least I didn't see it when I looked at it.
So are we thinking a recommendation to add to that good neighbor package for next summer season?
that was my other question is what's our communications vehicle and frequency and how we communicate?
And should we wait?
Mm.
Cause there's renters in the winter too, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Sure.
and, sorry.
No, I mean, but I don't think
No,
anything
you're
like
right. You're right.
the proportion, but I mean, if we started now with. If we made the recommendation as Janet's suggesting, I think there might be some other things that it would might take us some time
I just,
to work through. Editing,
Mm.
recrafting, getting communications approvals. We might make it for May.
you're right.
We have
missed.
Yeah, and the other thing that I kind of dovetails into that I think is actually a bigger issue is at that point, that's the township acknowledging everything on that document. And then I think we're sort of committed to be enforcing it and following up on it. So this would sort of solidify that we're limiting the number of bedrooms per rental or heads per rental based on the bedroom. I just want to make sure that that's something that everybody's comfortable with before we move ahead with that, Shane.
Exactly, because I think if you jump ahead to the drafts of some of the things that we put forward here, there's specifics around. How that is monitored, enforced, inspected, that sort of thing. And without having that sort of solidified and agreed on, it's gonna be difficult to put that into the good neighbor package that's already out there. I think, cause that, you almost need to get agreement or, I don't know whether it be council approval or however that works, but you need some sort of general agreement and commitment to going forward, just like you said, with that process to enforce that. Before you put it out there, that it's something that needs to be considered as a
But it's
part.
already a bylaw and it's already for septic and fire code.
Yeah,
And
it's in the
if we
code.
say, did you know, we're saying, were you aware? Not, did you know these things? And if you don't, we are going to do X, Y, Z. We're not there yet. we're just doing a did you know? Because this is already by law.
But I wonder if it's really about reminding renters and owners about the top 2 or 3 issues.
Yeah.
Septics, fire, safety,
Mm-hmm.
probably, and noise. And that just could be an addendum. Those are all existing bylaws, but it's almost like here's the top issues and here's obviously what you can do about it. Be respectful. Owners limit the number of renters. Something like that, an addendum.
But the addendum, are we targeting it at the renters or the people that are renting the or the owners of the property that are renting?
It could be both. It could be both, like, that one example we got where, somebody was renting and the owner left after the briefing. And then 10 more people came in after, and the owner's cameras picked it up, and the owner turned around and came back and said, no, you're gone. If there was a did you know, maybe that renter would call off the extra 10 coming up. It's just a behavior change, or the renter would ask the owner, well, are we offside here? And the owner would have to say, actually, yes, or, you know, yeah, maybe as an owner, I'll be careful next time.
Okay,
I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. I think that's perfect. My only concern is getting out too far ahead. This is something that's new. It'll be a new part of process. I mean, the township has already dealt with all the bylaws that have been on the books now for some time. Everybody's familiar with that. There is some sort of enforcement mechanism in place for that right now. The piece about looking at properties that are commercially advertising with more than, 2 per bedroom, that's new. And I'm just wondering, I'm a little concerned with getting too far out ahead of that process where we're out there saying that, because that good neighbor piece is out there now. If we amend that now, we say it now, and we haven't solidified that sort of new process in the background that allows for the enforcement and monitoring of that. I don't know what the implications are for that. I'm thinking more of township administration than, whether it's sort of right or wrong thing to do,
But Shane wouldn't, so if, for example, this went to council for their consideration, we were done. And there was a recommendation here that said, add a did you know section that lined up with some of the other stages. It's all packaged to council.
Mhm.
And then it's their call, which recommendations to take as is or edit or whatever.
You're saying put it into.
I think of it as a recommendation to add.
Oh, then that's okay, sure. Yeah, if we want to do it that way, yeah, then I'm fine with that. I thought we were talking about amending it right now and making a change right now.
No, I think
Well, then if you put it in-
Edward's gonna go ahead with
Yeah.
getting it ready for May, but
If you put it in with the recommendations,
then it's linked. Okay,
that's the right thing to do.
is that a motion?
I would suggest right
Or-
away, only because to me, it's not getting ahead because it's already bylaws. And it's not saying, these are the new actions we will do. It's just a did you know? But I'll vote the majority. I just think that it would help. It would warm people up to what's coming potentially. So you're not getting a warning with this, did you know? You're getting oh, okay. There's some official paper from the township of North Kawartha saying they're aware and they want to make it publicly aware for my renters and me, the owner, that it's 2 to a room for fire code and septic reasons. And a bedroom's gotta be a proper bedroom.
Mhm.
I mean, to me, it's safety. If we waited till May to get this stuff out, and God forbid there was a fire. In a place where they might have either not known the bylaws or not considered it, but then thought, I better consider it because it's coming out a little more publicly. To me, that's just safety concern.
In doing that right away, what does that say to, people who own properties that are not renting them? That have the big crowd on the weekend once a summer, does that? I'm a little loath to, well, I'm a little loath to say, no, you can't do that, because that won't be accepted. And I'm not sure that's really what we're trying to do here.
No,
You know, we're focused on sort of commercially,
yeah,
for want of a better word, commercially advertised properties.
yeah.
That are being rented commercially.
It's the same consideration. Did you know, okay, you're going offside on bylaws when you have a party with 25 people this weekend. And I hear what you're saying.
Yes, that's.
I don't know, my general thoughts on it, it's not that I don't think it's valuable information. I think the only person that's actually gonna care about this is the rental owner. And it should be, it's very important, so it needs to be communicated to the rental owner. But even in a way that's separate from the good neighbor package that's going over the whole totality. But like whether it was part of the registration, like there's a box that they have to tick that they say, I acknowledge that per building code is this.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's a very niche market that would actually pay attention to that, and it would be the rental owner specifically. I think if there's a couple extra heads sleeping and I can't speak for renters, I've never rented a cottage, but if I find out that there's one extra person in a large bedroom, I'm not gonna be concerned. I'm just up there renting for the week and having a good time and on vacation. I saw in the pictures, there was 3 bedrooms or 3 beds in that bedroom and signed up for it anyway. So again, I think it's important information. I just think it needs to be targeted and even separate because it is important from everything else.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe it doesn't, maybe in the spring we can put it in the good neighbor package, but for now, I think just from communication from the township would be effective, because I think most people don't know that that's what the code is. Right? Just as an education thing.
If it is, I just wonder also about enforceability of it, because if it is a family reunion or a wedding or a group that's up there, are we legally able to say, no, you've got 15 people sleeping in this?
If you receive a formal complaint and act on it, it's no different than any other violation. It goes through the process. And if in the investigation that was to find out that 25 people for dinner frankly didn't overwhelm the septic system, he might choose to drop the investigation. It becomes his call, not ours.
And if it's sleeping, I'm thinking about the information that would be needed to require. Are they not gonna have to somehow know at like 12 p.m.
Well, by Monday, the
person was
tent
there?
down and all the cots are gone and there's no evidence that there were 25 people sleeping. It's the same
Same issue.
problem.
Yeah. But you can easily have somebody say, oh no, I went home, I was having a party with them, we're friends, I went down the street to my place, went to sleep, came back the next day, cause it's a group party. But I wasn't sleeping there, so I shouldn't be considered in the total number of heads. Like, it's just,
I know.
the more you dig into things, the
Yeah.
messier it ends up getting.
That's why you put it in Matt's realm, because that's his task, that's his job.
Yeah.
And more of it, did you know, than these are the bylaws and these are how we're gonna enforce them.
Sure.
Cause right now, there are bylaws that aren't enforced, and this committee hasn't changed that.
Yeah, we're not recommending new bylaws, we're recommending a different approach
To enforce.
to enforcement. Mr. Chair, where did we land?
Well, a motion would be helpful to somebody who want to make a motion that it sounds like there's pretty well consensus amongst the group that they want it added to the good neighbor package and for next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
You still have-
a motion to or recommend to council updating the good neighbor package to include information on septic and fire capacities with regards to number of bedrooms. Septic, fire and building, sorry, Connie. Ruben?
I'll move it.
Okay, make a motion, seconded by Ian. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, stage two, the enhanced bylaw and proactive enforcement for existing bylaws using existing resources.
So I took this one on and I did sort of get a little carried away with some of the other pieces, so that I think the work that Shane did and the work that I do are gonna have to be,
We overlap.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
but
but
there's reasons for overlap for both.
Well, and we say the same thing in most of the
Most-
draft, I
yeah,
thought, so
yeah.
that was encouraging.
But we needed what you said for action, and we needed the same thing for monitoring,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Yeah. So we had a fair bit of discussion on this with Matt, and the edits and changes that were made reflect that, I thought, that discussion. So that's what you see in front of you now. And I chose this format without actually thinking what format should I use. It just sort of popped out of my, here's what we think the issue is, and here's how it should be addressed.
So, just, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Just a quick question for Connie, maybe. Is there a template that the township uses for reports like this?
Or format.
Or a standard format that council would expect to see this report in, or are we okay to kind of structure this how we want?
I don't know that there would be a standard format other than in your terms of reference, the final report. And that's listed on here to kind of review that. So I think that's something that committee could decide how they want to do it, if they want to lay out recommendations and explanations for them. The other reason we added the final report is because terms of reference came forward initially, council approved them, but committee has the ability to go back to council and make a suggestion to amend the terms of reference if you think that that final report, maybe doesn't encompass everything or encompasses more than it should. So we wanted, as committees getting, progressing and getting towards the recommendations, we thought it'd be good for the committee itself to look at that final report. But I don't think there's any real set template other than, our staff report, format that we typically use.
So no need for whereas. That approach.
Yeah, it could be put in the format as a recommendation, that committee recommend that and include it. You could do it that way too, I think.
That's more what I was after. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I just want to make sure we're using somewhat the same terminology.
Yeah.
If there were any standards going forward.
Mhm.
And just my thoughts on the proactive, and this is getting way general for how deep we are in this. But I think it really is the key to getting people complying on their own. Starting big and trying to bring it more locally. Like everybody wants to see more police in Highway 28 in speed hot zones. They want people proactively going to those areas where they know speeders are gonna be, rather than waiting for people to call it in. I know in the past, our building officials used to rent a boat in the fall, go around the lakes and see what new construction popped up on the shoreline that wasn't permitted. And it made it very unattractive for people to try to sneak in sheds at the waterfront. And so again, like it's it's something that we have good precedent of locally, and I think having, I don't wanna say that fear, but people respect the bylaws. The easiest way to get people to respect them is to be proactive about it and make them worry that if they don't follow it, something might actually happen.
So one thing that occurred to me as I was mulling this later last week was the current stage 2 misses any properties that are ongoing rentals or word of mouth rentals, because it currently speaks to using an e-scraping approach to identify potential issue properties. My only thought there was that if we linked, we could address those, because I think 2/3 of rental properties in North Wharf that are never advertised. But the only link I could make was that if there were complaints under stage 3, then that would loop back to staff doing, so it's almost like we don't have to say it, we just rely on getting better enforcement due to complaints to try and catch those word of mouth rentals.
Actually, one piece of information, Connie, I'm not sure if we're able to get this. This would be interesting for me to know at least. I would predict of the official complaints, all of them are Airbnb listed properties and not the word of mouth family ones.
Mhm.
Is it possible to find out if the complaints, the addresses that are listed on public websites?
Well, there were only 3.
I think we're up to 6 now.
Is it the complaints? You
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, I did look back on those actually, because I was hoping for this meeting that that by law enforcement department might have time to update 2024 and 2025. But they're, coming out of summer, everyone was too busy down there to be able to review that. So we might get that for next meeting, but I did look back on those 6 complaints, and some of the noise related ones, the OPP was called, they did attend one property at like 3 AM or something. But it's, I guess if they had the address, they could do a search to see, are they listed on those sites?
Right.
And maybe they do, I don't know.
The other nice way, thank you, Ronnie, but the other nice sort of sub-feature of doing the internet scraping is, I think, that the properties that aren't causing issues for people right now are gonna be the least impacted through that.
Mhm.
Not to say everybody that rents on Airbnb has a party palace, but,
No.
I mean, it helps eliminate the mom and pop people that I think I've mostly heard people don't want to be totally impacted. If they're just doing a couple weeks a year to people that they know year over year.
That doesn't mean there aren't building code infractions at those properties also.
Hence the AG.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice and clean.
Nice.
So I know, unless I hear otherwise, sense of general comfort with 2, except to go through with Shane's piece to see if there's additions.
Well, I think that was what I was just gonna suggest. I'm fine with this, but it also, much of it, I think, is the same as the piece that Janet, you added to the other document, the very last point there.
Yeah.
They're almost the same thing.
Yes, it's just, so the addition I did, for is,
The last one on the stage 4.
just a little more detail in order to identify how to monitor. Whereas it would be the same detail for you for how to, enhance the bylaw. So
I wondered,
is it redundant? Yeah, potentially.
yeah, I'm just asking whether, would it be appropriate to
Motion.
meld that together?
That's
Was make it one,
Yeah.
sort of recommendation, that's all.
Yeah, I sort of, as I was reading this piece, I thought, well, okay, there's a flow missing here.
That was me, yeah.
Yeah, new author.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't give credit there where I should have.
So I'm the only, and this is maybe getting too nitpicky, but, for even the title of stage two, when we're talking about existing resources, I think it's more existing systems because we're gonna need some more human resources if this is to be incorporated into a department that's already handling all the building approvals. And bylaw isn't presently the top priority of it. We can't just ask them to start enforcing Airbnbs and expect them to have those hours available if they're already very busy down there.
I guess it's up to council to determine relative priorities. So if council accepted these recommendations, and I'm speaking entirely off the top of my head, they would accept them and direct staff to come back with an implementation plan, which would say, and to your point, Colin, if we do this, say 25 properties a year, then we have to drop an equivalent workload from this area. That's council's call,
Or add resources.
would be the other.
And I think, given that, that resource decision would not be in our hands at all, whether we just change the name, change the word resources to process. So, proactive enforcement for existing bylaws using existing process.
I'm okay.
Would that nail?
However, Granicus is a new process, so.
Well, they hire consultants.
Okay, yeah.
They could hire a young 12-year-old summer student, then they'd probably be able to do the same search now with AI.
If they go on Fiverr, they can find somebody halfway across the world, they'll do it
Yeah.
for $10. It's a lovely tool.
So that's just an edit to the stage two type.
And would we suggest that? I think this is a logical enough step forward that it's even logical to bring it forward with an implementation plan. Or at least council have the suggestion of how much time this would be. Actually, no, I'm fine with the earlier suggestion. Yeah, it simplifies things. Streamlines it. But I'm just thinking if there's an obvious step that we know council is going to have to take in order to implement it, is it not worth doing in advance?
Well, but then we'd have to have the conversation with the chief building inspector about, well, if you did 25 properties, how long would it take? And you know, how many man hours? If it's 250 man hours, 10 hours of investigation, that's a pretty significant chunk of time.
It's a person per year.
But I don't know, I have no way of knowing what it might take until somebody sat down and tried it.
Yeah, is this 0.1 FTE or is this 3 FTE?
The first stage, which Janet has demonstrated, you know, going into Airbnb takes a few minutes. It's the behind the scenes paperwork follow-up on what's the building permit say for this property? What's the septic construction? Have there been any updates?
Going on site potentially.
That,
It usually be 45 minutes to get to a cottage from here, so you got an hour and a half
yeah,
round trip to the office.
yeah. Yeah, or you just fly the drone out from the top rooftop and have a look. So I volunteered, I guess, to do stage 3 as well, which we did also had a conversation. And I think Shane, you covered some of the same rationale.
Led over into that,
Yeah, that, you know, part of the reason we're not recommending a registration program is the lack of formal complaints. Suggest it's not. It wouldn't be appropriate at this point. So I continue to be really impressed with the proposal or the presentation from Trent Lakes, in which they said, well, we just outsourced our overnight and weekend complaints to people that do this for a living. And I added some new text there about that if the community becomes aware, owners become aware that this new capacity exists in North Kawartha, it might lead to some behavioral change
Mhm.
by owners if they understand that, oh, there might actually be somebody show up at 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning,
Mhm.
which they would never have anticipated before. And I was perhaps a little over the line suggesting that it operate only in the open water season. And that they locate security staff at fire stations. But it still can be almost an hour and a half to 2 hour drive from a Peterborough office to the northern part of North Kawartha to respond to a noise complaint. Unless they're located here at the fire station.
I don't see a problem with the open water season. I think the majority, if we're realistic, the majority of the complaints and the majority of the issues are gonna happen, you know, sort of May to Labor Day.
Yeah.
Sort of timeframe. So I think that's quite valid.
And I would anticipate that when if staff took this away, council would ask them again for, okay, you have a tentative budget of $25,000. Does that get us weekend overnight coverage in the geographic region?
The time.
Yeah.
The time frame.
And just trying to figure out what the expectations would be. Thinking the bylaw, like the 24-hour call center, anything urgent would have to call the police, I think. It's the middle of the night and it's like a 2 a.m. noise complaint. They're not gonna drive out there themselves. And then.
No, there was Trent used a two-phased approach where they used a risk-based decision platform to determine the person taking the call. Went through that risk-based platform to decide what the next was. Do I file it? Do I call the OPP or do I call the private security firm, which is on call and capable of visiting the site? So that decision tree would need to be drafted. But Trent Lakes already has one. They've told the contractor what they consider worth a site visit. Imminent threat to life. Obviously, police aren't necessarily gonna deal with septic or building code issues, but if there's a tent on the front lawn and there's no fire plan, there's no firefighting, it's, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that they could decide the security company should investigate. And they then document it and hand it back to the chief building official on Monday morning, who then carries on now having a formal documented, not complaint, but
Or they've got the evidence.
the evidence is part of the supporting investigation. So perhaps somebody needs to talk to Trent Lakes a little bit more about some of the nuts and bolts. But I think it could be quite cost effective. Involve a contract as opposed to hiring staff. So it does have a budget implication.
I'm good.
And I'm already even thinking, not that I can offer up township properties, but. Trying to be realistic, having two municipalities involved makes it easier to sort of keep resources on site somewhere. And where like Wilson Park is actually fairly central for Trent Lakes and North Kawartha, where they can get to all the properties pretty quickly. And it may be more realistic partnering with another municipality than trying to sort of take on that entire burden on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Cost effective.
Okay, so we're okay there.
Yep.
Okay. Progress. So this is, I think, where the two pieces start to overlap more. I got a bit creative assigning the CAO's office the mandate to track and report, which would integrate. But then I think there's some stuff in the other piece that could be inserted here to make it a bit more robust.
Yes, speaking, do we want to look at the other piece now? Is it appropriate to do that now?
Yeah, or,
Just to see how it merges.
Just see how
Yeah.
it goes together?
Yeah.
Is that,
yeah, we can do them both at the same time.
would that be okay?
Yeah.
Are you good? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So I called it stage 4 tracking follow-up and outcome measurement, and I think I kind of expanded what stage 4 was originally intended to be once we got going with this. But basically that it talks about the nuisance bylaws that have come up frequently in any of the discussions we've had. And the question about whether all of the complaints are, number one, making it to the township, and how are they getting there? Are they formal, informal? Stop you in the grocery store and complain, or are they, logged online, that sort of thing? And that there is the survey responses. I think it's important to say this. I mean, this is not meant as a criticism of the township in any way, but it seems to be there's a little bit of the expectation of the public in all of this and what bylaw enforcement actually does is not aligned. There's a gap there in expectations, which may mean managing some expectations and maybe changing some things on the bylaw enforcement side as well. So I think it was worth saying that. And then the measurement piece is important to understand if there's any progress being made by all of the things that we're recommending be done. So I put sort of some words around a recommendation to establish a central logging system to track all the bylaw complaints, possibly with the exception of building bylaws, because that's a little bit of a separate beast. And I'm wondering if that is kept separate, and I'm sure that Matt would probably appreciate that as well. And propose that all the complaints be logged, including formal, where contact information is provided for follow-up, anonymous, where there's no contact information, and casual. Those are a little harder to nail down, but I would imagine there are members of council who are hearing about these kinds of things in passing, like I said, in the grocery store or at the gas station, that sort of thing. So I think it's really important to capture that as well, because that really is another complaint or issue being highlighted. Try and note that it's a complaint about a short-term rental if it is, to make sure that's noted. And all complaints, I think this is a really important part. All complaints submitted with contact information should be followed up with the originator, regardless of the investigation outcome. And then the last two pieces there were establishment of an online bylaw complaint reporting tool that can be accessed 7/24 by the public. It seems like the township has a piece of this already with respect to building bylaws specifically, but so perhaps that's there already. It could be expanded. And a telephone line available for 7/24 for bylaw complaints to be submitted. I admit I didn't check to see if that already existed. Maybe it does. Because there's several phone numbers listed there that can be called. Then looking at that's sort of collecting that data, and then how to sort of look at the metrics to spot ongoing trends. Can be an outcome measurement tool for enhanced bylaw enforcement. The recommendation would be to measure and report the outcomes of those changes that are being made to the process. Looking at the number, reporting on number of bylaw complaints logged, whether they're formal, anonymous, or casual. The number of complaints by individual bylaw, so whether it's a burn complaint or a noise complaint, that sort of thing, and number of bylaw complaints that are open, under investigation, and closed. And I think from what Matt said, on the bylaw side, he does that. On the building side, he has a system in place to do that. Not sure that exists for the other sorts of issues. And some sort of reporting on the number of ghost hotels that are operating publicly outside of capacity and septic rules. I'm not sure how everyone feels about that, but I think that's an important one to monitor. If we've highlighted that as being a concern, and we want to do some proactive work on trying to chase those down and remedy some of that, then it's a good idea to measure that, how many we know are out there at any given time. sort of on an ongoing basis, so that if there's any progress being made, if we start out, we identify there's 25 of them, and 2 years from now we have 50, then, you know, that's gonna be an issue. So I think it's important just to count them. And then, speaking with specifically about the survey, I think I'm hoping that we agree that surveying residents wouldn't be a preferred method of measuring specific outcomes. But it is a good tool to sort of gauge community perception, take the temperature, if you want a different term. And you can identify broader concerns or issues, and there may be some different ones that come up over time. In any case, I'm proposing that we would say, depending on the timing of how we roll out some of these, or how some of the recommended actions are rolled out, give it 2 years before you do it again, or it wouldn't be of much use, I don't think. And I'll leave the last one to you, Janet, if you want to speak to that.
Sure, yeah, so this was just the tracking of compliance, particularly around ghost hotels, and the second paragraph just talks to how easily it can be done. Just looking through 2 sites, Airbnb and Vrbo, to see if you go in the link and click and write in, I want to rent anytime, and I'm looking for 16+ guests, and you immediately see if there's less than 8 bedrooms for 16+ guests, then you know it's bylaw infraction. And then both sites provide a relatively specific general area that the cottage or the rental is in. And then it's a case of Google Maps and just going on Google Maps and expanding to see where the cottage is and the address. So again, that was just the minutes of research it takes to see egregious infractions. And I put the example of the town on Lake because of the deputation that occurred, and it was a 4-bedroom, including 1 bedroom that didn't have a window. So it was obviously a basement storage area as presenting as a bedroom. So then, you know, the safety concerns skyrocket, and recognizing why the deputant has been here multiple times. When there's 16+ guests in a 4-bedroom, really a 3-bedroom. And then by measuring these, and it's relatively easy to do on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, or maybe monthly, depending on if they start going down, if those types of ads for those types of ghost hotels go down, then that's a marker for measuring outcomes from this committee. So that could fold into monitoring, that could fold a little bit into stage 4.
That stage 2 piece, this is where I see the overlap.
Yeah.
This is,
Could be cut.
you know, you've covered in your proposed wording, you've covered the why and the what. And this speaks specifically to one method of how that we might recommend, and also using the Granicus type service would be another method to do that.
Granicus, I'm assuming, would be much more robust than this quickie way. They catch all the, not just the really.
It's hard to recommend them first when we know how easily this can be done. Just saying, you know, if we're only looking at the worst or the ones that are most egregious in our minds, then this method is fast, cheap, and effective. If we were to look at all of them, we want to check every single one of them, well, then maybe you jump to a Granicus type service, but fast, cheap, and effective is good.
I certainly agree. going back in time to my other metaphors, you're sitting in the hot spot on 28 with your traffic gun that way. And if Granicus gets 10% more properties than we can find, is it really worth all that money to
Right.
find 10% more? When perhaps not everyone will be able to be followed up on within the year anyway, so. Yeah, I think Shane raises very good points there.
It will also highlight any difficulties that enforcement may encounter if they identify some right off the bat, just by looking. It may identify any enforcement difficulties that are gonna come out of that before you get a list of 100 to look at.
The only thing that came up, like, sorry, get to there.
Yeah, I just, in listening to all of this, I just had one question, maybe through the chair, perhaps to Shane. I think it was in the one you did where, wherever complaint comes in, that there be follow-up with the originator of the complaint when it's not an anonymous complaint.
Yes.
I just wondered what you see that follow-up as being. Is it simply calling and saying, we just want you to know that we have followed up on this complaint? Because unfortunately, we can't provide the details. So I was just curious about that piece.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what details you can and can't provide, but I would think that the first thing you do when you have one and there's contact information, the first step is acknowledge the complaint.
We received your complaint.
We've received it, we will investigate. As far as investigating and reporting back, I think the follow-up still needs to happen to say this has been investigated. If all you can say is it's been resolved, then say that. You know, if you can provide more information, you know, to say this has been resolved through bylaw enforcement process or any of that kind of stuff, say that as well. And I think we've heard it different times where people have called with general complaints, and they don't hear anything. And that's part of that gap where what people expect to happen and what's actually happening is apparent, so. You give them one, of course, if there's confidential information in there, of course you can't give them that, and I wouldn't suggest that, but. And I don't know what's confidential and what's not, particularly in that instance.
And even if there's not a ton of information given, if we're able to say the investigation's completed and then it happens again, then that individual has a little more to stand on and be frustrated about, because they can say there's a previous investigation into this that was completed. So they don't need to know all the details, but I would say as much detail as we can give while being respectful of privacy laws is the best.
And I don't think we do an acknowledgement now, so that would start the process pretty, you know, it'd be nice to know, oh, I got it. It
I
didn't
would
just
agree.
go out here.
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Shane?
Yeah.
There's not actually Ian.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We look alike.
I'll start, I think, with a question to Connie. And we got some other piece from you about formal public complaints about township services. But does the township currently operate a dashboard where you track 14 metrics and get updated monthly or quarterly that the public can see? Is that done on any department level, or like beach closures, or I don't know?
Or anything?
So,
Yeah,
Every meeting.
yeah, so, as we don't really put something like that on the website other than, on our agendas, typically the second meeting of the month. Departments do put in monthly activity reports. So that varies department to department, what information might be in there. For example, fire would indicate medical calls and that sort of thing. So that's something that, committee members can go in and take a look at that and see what's on those reports. I know that when a complaint comes in, if it's by email, it would be acknowledged. So I think the township already does acknowledge complaints. And sometimes if the individual, you know, calls back again, it could be, as Shane said, it's being investigated. I think in hearing that, I think some of the challenges that sometimes these things can take a long time to get resolved or completed. So that's where if it's ongoing and the person keeps, calling back, there's maybe nothing new to tell them other than it's under investigation, which may not satisfy them. Yeah, but there's no, so our citywide program is in process. It's being utilized right now, and it has the ability to do reporting. So that might be something we could bring forward on a future agenda as an option to maybe have someone come and explain how the citywide program could work for something like this. It's just not fully in use yet. It's being integrated. It is available on the website. People can submit service requests to it. When staff get a phone call at the front counter, they're using citywide to submit that service request. It might be a pothole on the road. It then goes to the roads department. There's follow-up. And so it hasn't been in place a long time yet, but we're looking at including more things in that. So that might be something that's worth having a presentation to committee.
I've looked at those reports that you talk about in the
Yeah.
second. It's the second meeting of the month. Usually they have them, the activity reports. And they report on different metrics, of course, but if you look at the emergency services one is the one that sticks out for me. They have a nice little chart. They report their stats year over year. You can see exactly what's going on. And you can even make resourcing assumptions just by looking at it. So that's the kind of thing that I think is done. This isn't a new concept at all. I think it's done. This would be in addition to that, right, where we start to track maybe bylaw enforcement in a little more detail than what it is now.
Right, yeah, that was sort of where I was going with the specific short-term rentals. It would be new things to be reported. And that lends itself well to that sort of monthly dashboard approach. And then all that might be necessary is a link to the short-term rentals page to say, if you want to see the current status, click here. And it might take you to that second week of the month report in the council minutes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a separate page. It just has to be, because frankly, I wouldn't know to look in the second week of the month for updates, nor I don't think with any other ratepayer except for me. You got me. You're the only guy that works on the police board, so that may be why. So I think, what I would add to that is that then there'd be a clear link, so the public could easily access this report as opposed to it being in the minutes.
I also think it's just from a council standpoint, having looked at the last few reports, it's worth just changing the way that we present it on the agenda. Bring it back to building/bylaw enforcement, because right now we're opening a document that's the building department's stats, and I'm more focused on building related items. And then as Shane's pointed out, there's no subcategorization of the bylaws that are being complained about or enforced. So flushing out the information that gets on the second page of the document that in the title doesn't include bylaws, I think would help just keep people aware of what's going on month to month.
Do I sense a general comfort level with mushing?
That's a technical term.
And
Yes.
we can talk later, I guess, about how to make that happen. I was gonna move to stage 5, which I stuck in. I think we've had some discussions of the county level process. I guess I'm happy to listen to thoughts about whether this would be an appropriate recommendation. I guess I expressed some frustration with our chief building official at the last meeting about the being firmly wedded to the Provincial Offences Act approach and courts to resolve issues when many municipalities have adopted apps as quicker, leaner, cheaper less onerous and not requiring legal time.
I'm good with this. I agree with that. I think the AMP system, it has other implications for the township administration beyond short-term rentals, beyond the context of short-term rentals. But I wouldn't hesitate to put this in as a recommendation. There's a lot to it, I think, to implement it, but it's been done before. There's lots of townships that are doing it. There's lots of municipalities doing this now. I wouldn't hesitate to agree with recommending this at all.
Connie?
Just for clarification, our chief building official is not opposed at all to putting in the AMP program. I don't think staff is either, and what's good about this program is it's fair across the board to everyone.
Yeah.
It's in place for everyone, whether you're a short-term rental or not, so it's a fair process to do, and it does speed things up. I didn't have a whole lot of success in kind of being able to find out costs. I did check with a few municipalities, and one, what I seem to be hearing from a few more local ones was they could implemented AMPs. They hadn't had any go to the higher levels appeals. Things had been resolved at the screening level, which I think is good because it probably means that when tickets are being issued for these things, they're doing the work that they need to do to make sure that it's properly done. So it's resolved at the screening level rather than incurring costs for an outside hearing officer. So that part seemed good. Of the fines though that had been implemented, not a large amount was collected. So then it goes on to the taxes. It can sit there for a while, right? People can continue to pay taxes, so you're not going into a tax sale. But that could be some of the challenge we're seeing is actually being successful in getting the fines.
So, sorry, through the chair, you actually can keep track of that difference between the tax that they owe versus a penalty that's assessed?
Apparently, from what I obtained from other
Wow.
municipalities, that would be a good question, I guess, for the.
Because to me, I would think you'd just apply it to the latest
Yeah.
outstanding money.
Yeah, and I mean, that would happen, I would think.
Yeah.
But it takes some time for taxes to become in an arrears position in order to proceed for tax sale and collect those fees.
And interest charges are applied after 90 days?
No, typically, so if your taxes are due at, say, the end of the month, there's a little bit of a grace and then they're applied monthly.
It's only a couple of days, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Okay.
It's not a 90-day thing.
Just a question of curiosity, has council considered AMPs for generally any other reason in the recent past or looked into it or?
I don't think it's been a discussion at all.
Okay. So this could catalyze a discussion.
For sure. I think this will catalyze the discussion. Yeah.
I didn't work on stage 6. The text that's here, I think, got messed up through cut and paste somehow. But I think there's some stuff in this other stage 4 piece that speaks to the things for council to consider in 2028 in pursuing a registration program.
Survey.
It just needs to
Right,
be
yeah.
cut and paste that are merged, meshed.
I had a question about, there was a question in my mind about stage 6. It's started as 6A, 6B, I think, when it was originally written, 6A registration. 6B was licensing.
Yes.
2, would we still want to keep, my first question would be, would we still want to keep those as 2 separate recommendations? The second part of that is how do we want to recommend that in terms of timing and necessity, and what are the triggers to go to those steps? Because they're a little bit more, the way we've treated them here and in some of our discussions, is they're more the final, sort of final and last resort. If we're not getting,
Option.
yeah, if we're not getting any results with some of the other changes, then we go to this, and my concern would be how we phrase that so that readers of the report understand that we are not recommending this out of the gate.
And we're hoping that we don't get there. We don't necessarily have to get there if the other stages are
Right.
successful.
And I think we have to say that, just like that, plainly. And then there's a sort of third part of this that I was thinking about is if we make a recommendation like this, how much detail do we put around a licensing process in order to recommend it? Because that could be a document all on its own. But so
Or do
I'm not sure how to even answer that.
do we talk to the deputation we heard about licensing and how they pulled back as our rationale for it being an option that we would have to go into much more detail if we have to get there?
Oh, Trent Lakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that,
Mhm.
because actually, without getting into licensing and registration, the one thing that makes me really happy about this whole process is that it's equitable for all property owners, whether you have a short-term rental, live
Mhm.
beside one, or haven't seen one in 5 years. It will impact you on a reasonably equal scale, so, I think it's worth asking specifically why the registration program was found to be too intensive. Was it more pushback from property owners? Was it staff time? Find out what the specific challenges were, but I'm glad that it's not what's being jumped into.
So wasn't it financial?
Good story.
It was.
Yeah,
huge
licensing
financial.
was gonna, the cost far outstrip the revenue.
Yeah,
And you were at AMO and others, you've heard that story over and over and over again with
Yeah,
licensing.
and it needed
I
to
think you're
increase the
right.
fines, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen it, City Court, the Lakes, Howard County, the municipalities up there are experiencing the same thing.
So I think, what I heard Shane is, I think where we went originally, which is if in a couple of years, the metrics suggest
Mhm.
these recommendations aren't addressing the problem,
Right.
move to registration. If after a couple more years, the registration program isn't addressing the problems, then it might be worth considering licensing. Is that?
Yeah.
It's just one thought that I've had. It very well could be by the time that we get 2-3 years down the line, there's a private company that's determined that creating these registries and handling the licensing on behalf of municipalities is a good business. So we can keep it fairly general, because we never know what improvements are gonna
Right.
come in the 2 to 3 years. Again, if it's not capable for one municipality to handle it, then I'd be shocked if there wasn't a way for somebody to turn this into a at least break even, if not a profitable venture, the registration and licensing.
So would you also be suggesting that we not detail a proposed licensing process as part of the recommendation?
Correct. And
Right.
as of today, it's cost onerous.
Yeah.
So it leaves open that in 3 years, it may not be cost prohibitive.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I think there was push, I think that was the other one, what you just said about, pushback by owners, were pretty strong. Was what she was telling us in the deputation, I recall.
Yeah, I think they sort of realized they'd gone down a rabbit hole. And at the end of the rabbit hole, it was like, oh my goodness. What were we thinking?
Yeah, well, we're $200,000 underwater and we haven't solved the problem potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and their bylaws really aren't specific to the type of property, whether it's short-term rental or permanent. So again, I think this is all very good.
So,
Yeah,
we've got a lot of good discussion. Edward's, I think, still sitting on the line. Perhaps. I'm just wondering about taking this and who gets the whole potato masher and,
Smush this into a.
right,
Mm.
the next step.
Okay, I see a screen coming on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Through you, Chair. I think based on the recommendations that come out of the meeting today, that myself, I can work with Connie and look at kind of putting this information together within a report to go to council. But if the committee members want to start working on a kind of a consolidated draft, and then we can discuss it with in terms of formatting it and synthesizing that information, myself might be one of the ones to help out with that process for sure.
I can volunteer if I would appreciate though, I've taken some notes, but probably not. If I could get your notes.
Can you read my handwriting?
I think so. And I can take a cut at the next draft that consolidates everything.
And so do you want to do that together? I wasn't sure if that was the implication.
I could.
Yeah.
Or at least have someone look at my version.
Yeah.
And I can do that this week. So we're going to take a look. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a bit of this. And then, process, I take it back to the drafters or over to Ed.
Okay, I was thinking again that we will all be done together, like you and Edward, sorry,
Okay,
just to make sure that the next draft comes forward with the township lens on it at the same
Yeah.
time, so we may not have to sort of change as much and filter it. Is that all right with you, Edward?
Through your chair, yeah, I think, yeah, I'd be happy to provide the committee guidance in terms of formatting, and feedback, I would say from within the terms of reference. I think if there's specific items that require feedback, say regarding building code or things like that, we'd have to take that to Matt for specific, information. But in terms of formatting and providing kind of guidance and in those recommendations within the terms of reference, I'm happy to help out with that part of it.
send it back to you. And then to them after you guys.
That works.
I'm around.
I'll make sure I have this, I'll have this with me.
Okay, so I guess it would be a motion to receive discussion and have Janet prepare a draft based on the discussion of the stages, the implementation stages for the next meeting. Is that a real motion, Connie?
I think that's okay.
Somebody want to make that one? Moved by Shane. Second by Janet, all those in favor, that is carried. We take 5 minutes before we get into our rest of the agenda here.